But then this is the joke about this group that was revealed. Talk about conflict of interest. Listen, there's so many things that's been going on and has been revealed in the last 3 years about conflict of interest of so many things. So many things that has happened in Canada, Ontario, and Toronto has people's hands mixing in it. Conflict of interest just keeps popping up in the last 3 years of everything vital that's come in to steal, kill, and destroy what it was to be Canadian, what it was to be Canadian. It came and it hit you. The racism card hits you. Tell you that you're worse than America. And I saw you Canadians believe it. And I was like, what? The critical race theory that came into your schools and they told you it's just south of the border. It's a university thing. It's not here. And then you're in shock and awe when it really was here. Taking away merit-based programs and taking all specialty programs out. No more merit. And you guys like, well, this will never happen. Shock and awe when it did happen. So it's not just one singular issue. They're all interwoven. They're all connected. Then you talk about the medical status of who's vaccinated or not. You think that's different. No, it's not, because the children were refused access to sports, extracurricular activities if they did not get vaccinated. Injected with this experimental process, government mandated, because vaccination definition had to be changed to accommodate this. Argue all you want, the facts are the facts. Keep your head in the sand all you want, the facts is the facts. It is on record. You can go through, if you want to, the information that is there, that they had to change the definition of vaccination in 2020 and 2021. They started that process and they officially changed the definition of vaccination to include this, because this was not classified as such. And for it to be sold to the population using the word vaccine, they had to change the definition. Never seen that in the history of medicine. So children that did not take this definition of vaccination were refused access. The same children that were locked down and denied seeing their friends, their family, grandparents, they are now refused to participate in sports, to get outside. These children that science showed that they were not spreaders. You did not have to be concerned about it. The adults in the school system, the unions in the school system, it was about the adults. It was not about the children. I remember during the lockdown when I took my son out to go and play tennis in our tennis courts that we could find public because the others were locked for clubs. And I saw teachers playing tennis. How do I know they were teachers? Because we were close enough on the court to hear them conversate as they came out and closed the gate behind them, because they're also club members, not living in the city of Toronto and driving in to our city because they have club membership. There's tennis courts there for our community. Our children can't use publicly funded City of Toronto tennis courts. Only after hours, when it's dark and late, is when it's accessible to the public. So my son and I were in the parking lot trying to figure out where else we couldn't go that was free during the day. And we heard the teachers coming out and locking the door behind them. And they talked about being teachers. I saw the beautiful cars that they mentioned in their conversation. One was at Unionville, living out in Thornhill, sorry, and they talk about the traffic coming down, and then they talked about getting an email about the returning back, opening back up the schools. So my son and I just sat there and ears dropping, listening to these teachers who just finished playing tennis. The same teachers are afraid of COVID. They're out there playing tennis, the luxury of playing tennis. And children were not able to play tennis, play any sport in particular. But these teachers are on the tennis court playing during the lockdown, being able to drive into the city of Toronto, just like they drive into communities and teach. And we can hear them, my son and I could hear them talking about what the plan is on pushing back and not having the schools reopened. And then one of them have the audacity to talk about, the children are coming and they're going to be sick with the runny nose. And it was already an issue before those, and you should hear the language that they were describing people's children. And also admitting that runny nose and colds and was there before COVID, but now they have the weapon, COVID-19 symptoms. And we sat there and we listened to them and we saw them, and I shook my head. So this was not just about anti-black racism issue that Richard was fighting. Richard, who gave his life in dedication to academics and serving communities south of the border and here in Toronto. This was not just about this issue. They were all interwoven because Rich and I crossed paths in the conversation of children and in the conversation of other initiative that was not about this anti-racism workshop, because Richard was a man who saw how other issues were interwoven and they all affected children. So when you talk about anti-black racism, anti-racism work, we have to take a step back and really ask ourselves, truly, and I did it, and it's all they talk about hindsight, because when I spoke at the TDSB on behalf of Trustee Pye as a delegate, and Richard was in the audience, and I spoke. At that time, we didn't cross paths, but we both were in the same fight. And that's how you get to meet others. Because I saw how the merit-based attack was also bigotry. It was against everything that we're supposed to say is about fairness and equality. So Richard is also there in the fight against taking away merit base, and I supported it and I shared my point of view and my experience. So when people attack because they have an agenda and they lie to you and tell you the agenda is about the children, it's not about that. It's blame and shame and revenge. This is all about revenge. And they're using the children. And the children at the end of the day are the ones who are going to suffer. And they're going to end up blaming, still finding somebody to blame. They're never going to take accountability that they're the ones that caused the situation even worse. It's no different than when they decided to create the Afrocentric school. And I got the invitation to please bring my children back into the public school system because I was homeschooling them. And I have my own, I'm not here to say racism isn't alive and well. What I could tell you, being a parent within the TDSB system, the issues and the hurts and the traumas and the fights I've had, it ain't just with the Anglo-Saxon. I had quote unquote black teachers. I would say quote unquote black because Black is not a people, it's a crayon color. That's a different conversation. But I've had to have fights with quote unquote black teachers who did more harm to my children's mental health than any other quote unquote color teacher. I had one quote unquote veteran black teacher who attacked my son's mental health, called him out, singled him out, humiliated him in front of everybody. And lo and behold, she turned around and I was walking into the class and I caught her red-handed doing what my son came home complaining that she was doing. And she was a black woman. Oh, yes, she was. But because my son came from an environment of high performance, she decided to want to attack him and bring him down as if he is not quote unquote black, and attacked my son. When I was finished with that, when I was finished with that quote unquote black teacher that's supposed to be there for black children, she took stress leave and never came back. Never came back. Because when I was done with her. So when I decided to say, let me try the Afrocentric, because it's supposed to be empowering, and they gave me the whole sales pitch. Please come back. And I was like, well, let's see if we have a different caliber of black teachers than the ones I have had to even fight within. And I had my share with the Anglo-Saxon ones and the Asian ones. Oh, trust me. It's a mindset. Let me tell you, you guys are running around thinking it's a color thing. It's a mindset. You're going to find idiots every hue, both genders, not every gender, sorry, every hue, either gender. You're going to find them. So it's not the color that you're looking for. It's the behavior, the mindset. Those that are within your own that don't believe that your child's supposed to be performing excellent. And that comes in all shape and all color. And I had to fight all shape and all color. So when I gave the Afrocentric school a chance, my children stayed only a short period of time because they were attacked by our own. And when the teachers and principals made meetings for the parents and myself to come to talk about how their children were physically attacking my children, verbally attacking my children, and bullying my children, because my children dared to speak proper, dared to have standards, dared not to conform to the quote-unquote black identity of what it is to be black. Those same parents had no time to come. One said they're getting ready to go to Jamaica, so they're packing and they don't have time to come to a parent-teacher meeting to talk about the behavior of their children, how they are creating mental health issues to other children. They list all different priorities that they have. My children were bullied, attacked in washrooms. Let me tell you, and all of this was in the Afrocentric school. So I'm ready for the quote-unquote blacks who like to point outside. And then those same Afrocentric parents turned around and attacked the Afrocentric faculty, because now there was nobody to blame. It wasn't the white man anymore to have to blame. They had to look in the mirror and they had to hear that it's your child. That's the problem. And they didn't want to hear that. So now they go around and they blame the faculty, the teachers, the administration. And then they try to get rid of the principal, because the principal was what? Whitewashed now? Now the principal is Uncle Tom now? And by the way, we've used the Uncle Tom in so many narratives. When you get to know who Uncle Tom is, you realize that you were wrong about who Uncle Tom really was. It's a disrespect. Because Uncle Tom didn't do the crap that you guys are doing and calling other people Uncle Tom. So they turned on their own because there's nobody else to blame for their children's performance and academic performance. They had to take accountability and they had to roll up their sleeves and go to work. And no, they're not going to do that. So they found the blame again. So listen,
I would strongly advise any politicians and anybody that want to jump on this bandwagon because you think that they represent everyone's behavior about blame and shaming, think twice. Because at the root of all of this, anti-racism, CRT, taking away merit, all of this is about revenge. It has nothing to do for the best interest of children of African descent. They're not black. They're not a crayon color. And even you who say you're about elevating our children, you're still using language of oppression and language that brings them down. They're not black children. They're children of African descent. But you don't even like to be called African because you hate your own. You hate even being called African. You fight against the fact of being called African. So let's clean up our internal mess and see how we are the ones that are causing and creating our own oppression by going around and blaming a color instead of identifying the content of people's characters who are oppressing our children. It's not a color that's oppressing our children. It's a mindset. And that mindset is also within our quote unquote black community. That's all I have to say for now. This is Lady O. Stay in action, faith, and possibility. Walk in and protect your light. Your purpose will find you. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And those in the quote unquote black community, I've always said this. I'm not just coming now. I'm not no late comer. And I'm used to the 47 years of your community attacking me and my family because we see what you choose to not want to see, or we see what you see but you lie to the community about. So I'm ready for you. I'm out.